Good morning, everyone. I love it when people do that. Welcome to the 7th Black Hat Singapore. We've started doing conferences here in 2000, and this is our second since we returned in 2014. Before we get started, though, I'd like us to take a moment and remember the founding Prime Minister of Singapore, Mr. Lee Kuan Yew, who just recently passed. Thank you. All right, so since 1997, Black Hat, we've been providing conferences focused on where the rubber meets the road, the applied application of security research to what really happens. And if you think back in 97, there were some conferences that were academically driven, but they weren't practically driven. And so that's where Black Hat came about. What's actually possible? How hard is it to really attack a system, to really defend a system? And we drew a distinct line between content and sponsorship. Right? We were interested in what happened, and we did not want to be influenced by sponsors. But we wanted sponsors. Sponsors wanted to be with Black Hat. And so for almost 20 years now, we've had a really great relationship separating the content from the sponsorship. And this is what's created sort of the Black Hat ethos, right? And it's continued now for so long. We do conferences around the world. We have some new conferences coming up, one focused on mobile coming up in London. We have a Black Hat Europe in Amsterdam. And we draw people from around the world that are interested in hearing what our speakers have to say. And for this conference, we have people from 64 different countries that have traveled to Singapore. And it's an interesting thing. I have statistics every year. If you've been to Black Hat, I always read out the statistics. But I always kind of focus on the more interesting edge cases. And so we have 64 total countries, but we have single people from 19 countries. So you're the sole representative of your country if you're on this list. So I'm just going to read out a couple. We've got Argentina, Austria, Bahrain, Cambodia, Colombia, Croatia, Estonia, Ethiopia, one from Iraq, one from Jordan, one from Latvia, Macau has one. I would have thought more from Macau. Mali, the Netherlands, New Zealand, Oman, Portugal, Sri Lanka, and one from Ukraine. So, sorry you don't have any compatriots here, but if you are from any of these countries, we're a really open family, and feel free to ask questions of anybody. And the other thing that makes Black Hat really unique is we try to create an interactive experience. Right? We're not here to put the speaker and preach at you. You're there to challenge the speaker. If the speaker says something that's old or outdated, inaccurate, raise your hand and challenge them. Right? They want to learn as much as you want to learn. And if you can correct some misinformation, that's great for everybody. So don't feel that you just have to sit there and be, non-participatory. And then also the speakers are available in all the breaks, in the reception tonight. And so it's really here for you to get the most out of it. Get out of this conference what you put into it. And so I really encourage you to challenge everybody. So 2 new things for this year. If you've been here last year. New is we have the Arsenal. And the Arsenal is a concept that we've had at USA, which is maybe we've got some new content that doesn't fit well in a talk. So we have 12 Arsenal stations, and we've got people demoing their software or their tool. And so if you want to come up and say, talk to the guy who's got a new scanning tool, he'll tell you all about it, he'll demo it, can spend time one-on-one learning. So think of it almost like a stand-up workshop, or if you're in academia, almost like a poster session. So that's a new expansion. We've got the Arsenal. And then we also, to involve the next generation in security, which is hard to get people sometimes involved in with so many opportunities, we have a student scholarship program. So we have students that are interested in security write essays, we grade, we review the essays, and then the top people, there's no limit on it, but the top people we accept. And so for this year, we accepted 47 submissions, and so there should be 47 students, some here somewhere. If you're here in the audience right now, please raise your hand. right? Excellent job, guys. So seek them out if you're interested. Talk to them, or feel free to talk to anybody else. We want to get you involved in this industry. And thank you for taking the time for choosing Black Hat and submitting. So before I introduce our keynote, I just have a couple comments I want to make. And this is really going toward the direction, I think, of our industry. And who here in the audience, raise your hand if you think complexity is ever going to slow down. Right? Complexity is here for our life. And complexity is only accelerating. And when I think about complexity, I think failure of complex systems. And I don't see how, on this trajectory, in this accelerating trajectory, how we deal with this level of complexity without radically rethinking how we're going to approach problems. So I want you to think about complexity. And I also want you to think about speed. I was recently at a CEO event, the world's largest businesses were at, and it was interesting. I'm there as the security guy talking to the CEOs of the largest companies of the world. And so I figure what I'm going to say is going to sound completely different than what they're saying. But in reality, they sounded a lot like me. Their concerns were speed. Maybe for me it's speed of the attacker, speed of defense, but for them it's speed of innovation. How do I get smaller teams, faster teams? How do I adapt? How can my network infrastructure be re-architected within 3 months to do whatever I want to do? It's like really interesting problems. Well, if you think about it from our perspective, speed is one of our only defenses against the attackers. The attackers are getting faster. You know, the NSA has the saying that attacks only get cheaper, attacks only get better. Like, when do attacks get worse? Like, never. So speed is one of our defenses. And so the way we deal with new attack classes is we either innovate faster, right? We have to out-innovate the problems, or we have to come up with a fundamental defense. So I really think dealing with complexity, we either have to innovate faster and maybe use machine learning or some new technology, or we have to radically simplify and reduce attack surface. So I wouldn't be surprised if in the future we see a hybrid approach. Maybe for an e-commerce site we have radical simplicity around the most important things like credit cards, and then we have these new generations of learning technologies that will passively or actively watch the network. So I want you just to think about those are our challenges, I bet, for the next 20 years. You know, complexity and speed. Okay, I would like to take time now to introduce Jason Schultz, who is the technical leader with Cisco Talos. Cisco Talos is their security intelligence and research group. And Cisco is our platinum sponsor at Black Hat here. And we really like to thank them, not only for being the lead sponsor, but also for using their contacts to really helping Black Hat come to Singapore and get the most out of this experience. So with that, I'd like to bring up Jason, who's just got a couple of words for everybody. So thank you, Jason.
Well, thank you, Jeff. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Black Hat. It's a real pleasure to be here today. I just hope to take a couple moments of your time to speak with you about some of the contemporaneous trends and challenges facing the security industry today. First, let's talk about some of the trends. Just this year, we've seen exploit kit authors, for example, such as those who are behind Angler, who used to be including exploits after they were disclosed within 1 to 3 weeks. We see them now releasing their own 0 days. So the time to releasing the vulnerabilities is narrowing. We've experienced common mode failures like Heartbleed and Shell Shock. And we experience firsthand how these common mode failures have the potential to adversely affect many different products and programs because of their reliance on the same poorly funded, under-resourced code base. Ransomware has reared its ugly head again. We even have some law enforcement agencies in the United States who had to pay the ransom to get their case files back. We've seen the explosion of point-of-sale attacks, especially at merchants in the United States who have yet to widely implement chip and PIN. And finally, we've seen the emergence of threats that are considered both advanced and persistent, APT. In short, the bad guys are getting better at what they do. They're getting smarter, and they're evolving, and this creates a number of challenges for us as an industry. The number of devices we must secure is increasing. Cisco is predicting as many as 50 billion devices by the year 2020. That's a huge number. Just to put that in perspective, there's only between 7 and 8 billion people on the entire planet. At the same time, the small processing and memory capabilities of many of the new IoT devices means that these devices are not very likely to be able to be updated or patched in the event of a vulnerability. And if we pause for a moment and consider the number of developers who are making new IoT gadgets versus the number of people who are actually working to secure these devices, and we can see that we've got a lot of work ahead of us. This conference is an excellent opportunity for you to learn new things and hopefully work smarter, improve, but most of all, have fun. Thank you.